Be well now. Dr. Ron Dummar, the
Hi,
curious
everyone.
patient Nick. How's it going, everybody? You know, breathing is so important. I think I know why, because if we don't do it, we're not alive.
Yeah.
But it's the sort of foundational part of meditation, which is being in the now. And we want to focus on being present and wellness in this podcast. So today, you brought up you want to talk about breath work, and I'm really fascinated by this topic. Probably the most fascinated I've been about anything we've done. So would you mind telling us a little bit more about who you are and what it is we're doing here today?
Well, yeah, I'm Dr. Ron Dummar, chiropractic physician, acupuncturist, and functional medicine doctor. And breath work is a big piece of what we do every day. We all practice breath work, whether we think we do or not. And some of us practice it in ways that are very problematic for our health. And others are very conscious about the way we practice breath work. And essentially calling it breath work is maybe defining it a little bit. When we do call it breath work, when we say breath work, we're really more referring to somebody who is intentionally or specifically altering the regular patterns of their breath in some way to achieve a advancement or a change in physiology. And so someone who finds themselves throughout the workday in anxiety, sitting down a lot, the lung fields are closed, not a lot of expansion by the diaphragm, they might have a lot of shallow breathing that occurs. And when you have a lot of shallow breathing and we're not pulling the air all the way down into the deepest parts of the lungs, it can afford or allow us to develop certain bacterial conditions or even pneumonias and have difficult times even clearing coughs if we have that. So it is a really important thing for us to practice adapting our breathing. One way that people have traditionally just said, okay, I'm gonna adapt my breathing is by challenging themselves to do something physically, which then gets the cardiovascular system gearing up and forces them to change their breathing patterns. So I may breathe through my nose on a regular basis and not even be aware of it really at all, whether I'm really breathing or not. But the moment that I go to climb several flights of stairs, I'm all of a sudden like, oh wow, I'm having to take deeper breaths. Well, now I'm varying my breathing. So from that point, we realize, okay, it requires a different style of breathing for me to do certain tasks in my life that are demanding to my physiology, which then would inherently suggest that there's a very significant role to the amount that I take in and the physiological demand that I want to be able to have on my body or to be able to utilize to perform a certain task. So if we want to support the physical frame, we need to recognize that that physical frame is actually supported by proper breathing.
So where do we start? I just want to know how to breathe, man.
Yeah, so the place that you start, I guess, is, biblically you would start in the garden, right? And there was breath breathed in, and that was the first breath of life. And ultimately, traditionally people might say, oh, well, that was the spirit. But breathing in the breath of life is really what we're talking about. Think about the exchange that we have with our environment every day. Think about that exchange. It's breathing. Breathing is the most consistent and constant interaction we have with our environment. So what's the best way to breathe? I'll tell you, there is really no best way to breathe. Ideally, if you can breathe through your nose in and out, that's a great way to breathe. But breathing to allow yourself, at least giving you some moment or some time to fill those lungs completely throughout the day, doing either an activity or performing a specific technique. So we're going to go over a few different techniques that I like. I don't necessarily have a name for all of them. Some of them do have names and do have specific processes for them. A number of them are based in Ayurvedic medicine. Some of them are based in Chinese medicine. And others are based in like Reiki and things like that, energy medicine. So a very simple breath technique to start with, and this is one that probably a lot of people are not necessarily familiar with, and so I'll start with it, is to breathe in nice and deep, to fill your lung spaces, and then to breathe all the way out. And then once you get to that exhale, the final exhale, as you feel all that air empty, stop and hold your breath for as long as you can. Now, at some point, you're going to start feeling your heart, a little challenge in the chest, or your heart might feel like, oh, I'm squeezing. I can do this. I can hold a little more. So push yourself a little bit more. And then as soon as you need to, take that nice big breath in again. Okay. So what we're doing when we work on breath work is we're challenging the diaphragm, but we're challenging our physiology as well. To be okay with certain lack or certain demands that are placed on it. Now, one thing you and I were actually talking about before the break is that there are organs within our body that secrete certain hormones and endorphins that flow through our entire body. When we meditate, when we do breathing practices, we feel these. When we exercise, we can feel the endorphins that are released. And certain people get a high from that, right? They consider that a high for them. And so when we practice breath work, we're going to achieve a similar type of a state that is very relaxed, very comfortable, and it's very empowering. So that's one technique. I would do that 5 times. I would take a nice deep breath when you felt like you needed to, and then breathe out all the way again, all the way to the very last little bit of that exhale, and then hold your breath as long as you can once you're finished.
And then a big deep breath in.
And then as soon as you feel like, I can't hold my breath at the exhale anymore, then you inhale again. And you'll do that for 5 times.
Through the nose?
Through the nose, yeah. You want to do it through the nose.
In through the nose, out through the mouth, or all nose?
In through the if you can do in through the nose, out through the nose, that's what I prefer for all of them.
Eyes open or closed?
I'll leave that preference up to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard different people talk about it, right? You see a lot of people meditating with their eyes closed, but maybe they're just sort of 3/4 the way closed, sort of unfocused toward the wall. I heard a Buddhist monk say when you do it with your eyes closed, then you're associating this sort of meditation with darkness, and it's better to try to take it off the pillow or the chair by keeping your eyes open when you do it, so it'll relate to your daily life. It's an interesting... I kind of go back and forth.
I do like having what I call distractions in life. I like challenging yourself and around the distractions of life, so that when you are confronted with the distractions of life, you're already attuned to behaving or having a certain state of being during that confrontation.
It's hard. Like if I try to meditate in the morning and my kids come in the bedroom, I get irritated and I don't know how to feel about it because, okay, that's my irritation to work with and I'll come back to the breath. But I don't know. It's like, because you're trying to get that peaceful start to the day. You know it won't be peaceful once you leave your room or your house, but I don't know how to feel about that. I still want to try to protect that space a little bit.
Yeah.
And yet I'm sure the distractions are helpful in their own way.
Yeah, so what you have to remember, and I have 6 kids, so I'm very familiar with this, and I've had to remind myself that...
Remind?
Mm-hmm.
What is that? You just said that word. We're talking about quieting the mind. What is remind?
Yeah, reminding, like, hey, bringing this up mentally again, that to put it in your cognition, that the purpose of our being here and the purpose of this being here that just walked into the room is me. Like, I have a significant contribution to the purpose of this being, right? And to the reason for them being. And so here they come into the space, and it's not so much about, oh, you're detracting from my space of peace. It needs to be, how can I achieve this space of peace and being with them as they are, right? So they're coming into the space, daddy this or daddy this, daddy that, daddy this. And it's like, okay, now can I keep this being and can I portray that onto you by answering you in a way that is actually like pushing energetically the space I'm wanting to hold into you, hoping that you're going to feel that, at least feel what I'm experiencing. I want you to experience too. I want us being together, right? And so the idea that I'm trying to convey by that is there's a lot greater work that is being done here when we bring beings into the world. And we have a significant role and responsibility to teach them how to deal with the confrontations and the distractions that they're going to meet in the world. And a lot of people that I am familiar with are very quick to say, oh, just medicate that. Just medicate that. Just medicate this. Just medicate that. And medication is an appropriate tool in certain circumstances that should always have an exit strategy. But we should always first be seeking to establish a place of being first. And then if from a place of being you think, okay, yeah, this medication is this is the right path, this is the right thing I need to do right now for me or for my child, then do it. But more often than not, I feel like these decisions for medicate your child, so to speak, are being made by a lot of pressure placed on an exasperated teacher or administrator or counselor or something like that. And we haven't really gotten to the bottom of the issue, to the root of what is going on that is between teacher and student or administrator and student that is not being dialed in on. What's going on that's not being dialed in on, that if we just were able to find that space out and clear it, remove it from that space of being in that child's life, they could function a lot better in the classroom.
Interesting stuff. Back to breathing.
Yeah, well, this is breathing.
Or this is breathing.
This is breathing. So this brings up significantly. I mean, you led us here too, but it brings up one of the roles and purposes of us doing breath work. So I mentioned exercise was one of the earliest forms of us establishing or recognizing that we're actually doing some sort of breath work, like we're changing and adapting what's happening and occurring in the lungs, right? The lung fields. And so the other place that I've noticed breath work takes a significant role is in sorrow, in loss, right? So think back to last time you were at a funeral even, or last time something was very traumatic occurred and a person was distraught or concerned. What was their lung doing? Think of the type of breathing their lung was performing. And I'll imitate it here, right? Right? That's an altered state of breath. Physiologically, trauma, the person had gone through a traumatic experience. This is showing in their lung. And actually in Chinese medicine, the lung organ is related to sorrow, especially deep, deep sorrow, right? And loss. So it naturally is going to have an energetic response in the lung. But conversely, if we have something in our life that we've dealt with, a trauma or something energetically that we need to get through or get past that we haven't been able to clear from our life, and it's kind of holding us back or altering some of our decisions in a way that we don't think is best serving our life, we can actually begin the process of clearing that trauma through an altered state of breathing that was taught to us the last time we had trauma, or in that state where we felt sorrow and sadness. So now what we do is we can do panting even, which is going to very quickly. So the panting, obviously, like a dog, right? You're going to do quick inhales and quick exhales.
Now let's just pause for 1 second. So this kind of breath work, can I ask what it's for, or is that getting into my mind when I should just trust this? Or, you said this can help relieve or heal the trauma?
Yeah. Yeah. So this type of breath work is to help. Breath work in general, let's put it this way. Breath work in general is to help, is performed to help somebody physically, spiritually, emotionally, right? That's what we're doing when we're performing breath work. So we want to assist ourselves or help ourselves in some way physically, spiritually, emotionally. Could be mentally, right? It plays a role in that too. So yes, a trauma that we've had from the past is affecting us emotionally in our present. It's affecting us through triggers that we see or that we pick up on in our interactions in life. And because of those triggers, we respond in a visceral, like a very physical way. And we can even have responses that are very visceral. And so what we want to do is, if we start to feel the energy of some of these traumas, is we can release them by inducing some of the panting that we're taught through sorrow. This is how we release the trauma, right? So by panting, I can say, okay, I'm having this emotion. I need to clear something. How can I do this? Well, you just do like really, really quick in-breath, exhale. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, and do that for about 5 to 10 seconds.
Through the mouth? I mean, is this just like
these
survival?
These are through the mouth.
This is you're drowning in water. You come up. You just take it through the mouth. Like,
yeah.
Just very
and
survival.
It's survival. Like,
yeah.
I mean, you think of the instincts, right? When we have traumas, it's all based in survival. And our life that's perpetuated after that is about survival. And we've repressed it so that we could survive. And now if we're feeling a trigger or if we're feeling some reminder of this in our space, in our being, well, we're going to have the same type of survival, fight or flight type of reactions. And then we need to calm that down by practicing that breath work. So that's one thing that we can do as well.
So can you run me through the 5 or 10 seconds one more time? Like, what are you thinking about as you do it?
Yeah, so what I would do, first of all, it comes from experiencing an emotion. Like you have to recognize, okay, I recognize that I am triggered by certain things. And then when I'm triggered, I start to feel a certain way that I don't like, right? Or I'm thinking certain things and I don't like being in that state of being. Then when you recognize you're in that state of being, you can practice releasing that, okay? So you can actually do it on the fly like I just described. Or if you have enough presence of mind to say, okay, I'm going to bring this scenario to myself when I'm alone, on my own, in like a meditation, then you can change it up a little bit, right? And you can add more nuanced breathing too. But what I would do is I would first start with a nice deep breath, inhale, and then exhale, and through my mouth this time. And then I'm going to inhale and exhale. Now, I've done that twice. Now I'm going to pant, okay? For 5 seconds. Ready? Go. Done. And now inhale. And out. And now you'll feel a release of oxytocin.
Really?
In
I
your
was
body.
too ashamed to make the noise, so I just kind of
Oh, that's all right.
I lip-synced.
You're going to feel
like
a release of oxytocin. You're going to feel a significant not hydration, oxygenation. Thank you. Of the cells.
Thank you, brain.
Yeah. Thank you, brain. Yeah, it was me. Yeah. So the significant amount of oxygenation as well will perfuse through the cells, but also that little fight or flight type of response is going to release or secrete some endorphins from your adrenals that are going to be pain relieving for a traumatic, stressful time. So now you have pain relief that's flowing through your cells and through your bloodstream, these hormones and endorphins. And you also have increased oxygenation that allows you to think and process things better, right? So you can logically add things up and come to more reasonable conclusions.
Would that be something you do 5 times? So that was 2 deep breaths, 2 deep exhales, and then
if I was in a meditation at my house, yeah, I would go through that. I would do it 3 times.
Okay, 3 times.
3 times
That's like
through
so
that
doable.
process.
That seems very doable to me.
If I'm out like feeling it, I'm in a space where I'm feeling it. I'm like, oh, I gotta take my 10 seconds away. I'm just gonna go somewhere and pant and then come back. Right?
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Is that putting a Band-Aid on it, or is that a proper way to handle it, or does it even matter at that moment?
Well, what you're doing is you're helping your body move through it, right? You're recognizing, man, I'm pissed off. I can either beat the crap out of this person, right, or verbally assault them, or however, right, or I can move through things and then come back with a more collected mind and a more collected person and being and space of being, and then communicate from that space. So what you want is, we don't want to really be communicating in that space of annoyance, frustration, irritability, or anger.
But you can't always like escape and walk away.
You can't. No. So that's when we can get into another type of breathing.
Because when
On the
you're
fly.
angry, you are not lucid.
Right. But that's to try to pull you back into it.
Okay, so now on the fly, I'm ready for it.
So this is one thing that you need to practice on your own, so that when you are out on your own, you can just essentially work on being in this space at all time, right? So as physicians, as doctors, as paramedics, policemen, they find themselves in these challenging situations, pretty traumatic scenarios, and they have to be calm. And so they're relied on by the public to be in a very calm demeanor and to make wise and cogent decisions, right? That's their job. That's their role. And when I sit with patients, my role and responsibility is basically to listen, to hear what they're saying, and, of all the different things that they say, and they're trying to figure themselves out in bits and pieces and throwing these things out there. And my role is to put a story together, right? To look at the macro view and say, okay, here's a story. What do we need to focus on in order to help this macro physiology, right? And so in order for me to be able to be in a space, because sometimes people will come in and they're up here, right? Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. These things are happening to me. And I went to this doctor, I went to that doctor, and they said this and they said that. Nobody's helping me, and I'm here with just you need to be able to help me. But you're the last person I'm coming to. You're my last hope. So just help me. And if I buy into that energy, well, I'm just scattered all over the place, right? So when we get into that space, I have to say, okay, well, I'm going to maintain my space. I see where they are. I'm going to let them be where they are, and I'm going to maintain my space. Well, how do I do that? Well, one of the ways I do that is by breathing, controlling my breathing. So this is where, for me, I slow down my breathing. And again, you imagine yourself almost in the Matrix, where it's like, right? It's like you see a bullet coming your way, right? And you can dodge it, okay? So that's essentially what's happening. You have like verbal bullets, and you're like, okay, which of these is the most important, right? And so in this space, it's like, okay, how do we slow things down for us? This patient, if we tested their heart rate and tested my heart rate, it would be completely different. So my breath work, what I'll do is I'll try to increase the number of seconds that I can breathe in, and increase the number of seconds that I'm breathing out. So it's just slowing down my breathing. So on this one, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my time breathing in through my nose, and I'm going to increase the length of time as long as I can for that inhale. And I'm listening to you, and you don't even know that I'm doing it, right? And then I'm going to increase the length of time for the exhale as well. Okay? And by me slowing that breathing down, it actually is slowing a lot of processes within my body down, so that I can be more aware of the little things that are happening and going on, not just within my own physiology, but externally around me as well.
I was just doing the breathing, obviously.
Feels pretty good, huh?
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes in meditation, I am the neophyte, the beginner, listening to you here. It's like, don't force the breath, right? Just be aware of what's happening. Just you're breathing in and you're breathing out, and you're being aware. You're being aware. Who is being, and what is they? Anyway,
I like how you're trying to break words down.
But you're just trying to like watch that breath, right, and not try to force any deep inhalations or deep exhalations. So I think sometimes when I try to drop in and like be here now, be well now, I'll just try to like let everything be as it is. But it's okay to force certain things, like a long inhale or exhale. You're changing things up in the moment, so that's also appropriate. I guess where I'm at is like a little bit stuck in some dogma about do it this way, don't do it that way.
Yeah.
But
yeah, the dogma is dog. Ma.
What's the ma?
It's the other word. It's a 4-letter word, isn't it? I think.
Is it?
Anyway,
Okay.
So dogma is dogma. Everybody has their own favorites, right? And it's like what works for them. And the reality is we need to do what works for us. And we have our own situation. Some of us have kids, some of us don't. Some of us can exercise and 5 days a week. Some of us can't make that happen. And some of us can wake up really early and get the sunrise the first thing, which is a really wonderful thing to do, by the way, is to get the early sunlight. But not all of us have that ability or even desire to do that. So we're all different, and it's really that we need to find patterns that are going to work for us, right? Not every coach is the same. Coaches are different, and that's why we have so many of them, and they all have their own keys that seem to work to unlock the box of success, and they all tend to do it from time to time. But there's also no one singular coach that I would say is able to unlock the box all the time. Why is that? It's because we're all unique and different, and each new scenario we go into, we're going to have to learn a little bit more about the scenario, and we're also being taught more about ourselves. And so this is a master class on us. It's a master class on you. Right?
What is life?
Life, yeah.
Okay.
The scenarios we go into, who we are, what we choose to do and to be. And so with our breath work, be patient with ourselves. I love the idea of just in meditation, listening to your breath. That is the first recommendation that I give to my patients. I think I said that to you when you come into acupuncture and people say, what do I do? What do I need to be doing? Do I focus on something? Should I be thinking something? Should I be chanting something? I'm like, just listen to your breath. Just pay attention to it. But also when I say that to people, their breath changes. Their breathing patterns change from what they were to whatever they then make them. So
is that bad?
No, it's not bad. I would say it's actually really beneficial because then they're actually aware that they're breathing.
Yeah.
They're recognizing again, oh, that's right. I'm taking air in and I'm expelling air as well, right?
Are they breathing? Who's doing the breathing?
Yeah, the patient, yeah. Who's doing the breathing?
Are they doing it? What happens when they forget? The breath still happens.
They do forget.
But it still happens.
But
so
they have to breathe eventually, right?
Well, what I mean is the heart keeps beating and the breath keeps happening when we tune out. So who is doing the breathing?
Yeah, is it just their neurology? It's just their physical makeup. And maybe it's just these chemical signs that say, hey, you need more air.
I don't know. I was just trying to get you to tell me something really profound because I don't know the answer to that.
Well,
who is I? Are we more than this body?
Did we talk about I am? We're going to have to do that.
Okay.
Scripting? I don't know. We haven't talked about
it. No, we did. Actually.
Okay, that's okay. Yeah.
We did actually. And if I get around to it, I'm going to try to put a link to a short that we did on that because it's really interesting to voice these things about who you are to music. And I haven't done it yet.
I am.
I've written down the things. I just copied what you said.
Perfect.
And then I was going to put some music in, and it seems like that's going to take some time to edit. So that seems a little intimidating, but I'm close, I really like those things. I'm intrigued by the idea of playing that back with my own voice at night.
Yeah, scripting is huge, and especially hearing yourself do it. Hearing yourself tell yourself something about yourself is really powerful. And it's believable, becomes more believable. You begin to believe it. And so the last thing talk about one more?
Oh, yeah.
Talk about one more? Okay.
Yeah. So, okay, we've done 3, though, right?
Yeah.
The first one was?
So the first one we did was, breathing all the way out and then holding your breath as long as you can until you have to inspire again or inhale.
Then do you do that again?
And yeah, so you want to do that for 5 times.
Okay, so we did that, and then we did the panting.
Panting. And panting can release a lot of emotions and things too, pent up emotions and also traumas.
And then we did okay, I'm in a public setting. I'm really trying to deal with this anxiety or impatience or frustration. I'm just going to extend my inhale and exhale as long as I can.
Perfect.
Okay, what's next?
So next, circular breathing is, you're trying to create this one eternal round, this continual spherical shape. It's like, if I were to ask you, you've come up with a lot of these questions to pontificate.
Yeah.
Right? Like, who is I? And so I'm going to ask you a question. What is circle?
I mean, circle's interesting, and I'm not going to answer the question, but I will tell you, I had this vision. I don't know if it was when I was meditating, and I haven't really breathed like this since then, so I thought I'd figured it out. Then I looked it up, and it turns out I'm not the only one who's thought of this. But sometimes things happen when you're meditating that are not meditation. I just want to focus on my breath. Well, that mind is going wherever it wants to go. But just the other day, I came up with this really good solution to a problem I was having when I was trying to focus on my breath. So, hey, it's working. It was a blessing of like, there's stillness, something beneficial happened. But I had this vision of sort of a figure 8. I don't know if that's the right word, where it's like, as I come up, I round at the top, I circle back down, and instead of stopping, I'm going to back down and through. And so it felt like, is that a figure 8?
Like a racetrack. Yeah, that's a figure 8. Yeah.
And that's the vision I had of like what a really solid non-stopping breath felt like. That was kind of a beautiful thing, but I just forgot about it. So you think you figured it all out.
Well, and
disappears.
We hear this a lot with people. And this is actually a technique that you can practice, which is interesting, but people will often stop breathing. And then they'll do kind of a staggered breathing like that. And I find this actually more so in patients with anxiety or stress, or frustration, like working through trying to solve a difficult problem. Right? And you can see patients in that type of a setting. Oftentimes when they're going to sleep, they'll have this disrupted breathing and they can't shut their brain off, or they have difficulty really calming down. And part of it is because they're not breathing properly, or not breathing in a way to release the melatonin and to release the serotonin and the dopamine and all these really nice neurotransmitters and hormones to help them just feel like they can calm down and go to sleep. And so as a result, they're breathing in kind of a method or a means that keeps them in a fight or flight pattern. Well, what does a fight or flight pattern do? It secretes adrenaline and cortisol from the adrenals and the kidney, and it keeps us awake and alert. It keeps our mind going, or racing almost, right? Sometimes even jumping to random conclusions that are at times illogical. And so we have to really focus on our breathing, especially circular breathing, continued breath breathing when we go to sleep. I think that's a really important time to do it. It's great to do with meditation, but it will certainly, if you start practicing this breathing when you're going to sleep, it's going to calm everything down, allow your mind to start settling, bring you right down into that phase of sleep, and you're out. Then so the next thing you know, it's your alarm's going off,
You asked if I knew about circle breathing, and you just mentioned it. So let's talk about what it is, even though you just said it, and then how we can implement it before bed.
Absolutely. So circular breathing, again, is I'm moving my hands in a method of a circle, right? And you used a figure 8, which I love that too. And there isn't any reason that you can't use that pattern if it works better for you, the patient. And so circular breathing is essentially, we want the in-breath to be connected to. If you imagine it's like a train car, we link it up, bloop, and it pulls it along. Now we're in the out-breath. And the train car, again, it's linked up. Now we're in the in-breath. And there's just no stop. It's a continuous flow of air. That's why we call it circular. So you think of this circle all the way up, inflation, and then deflation all the way down. And it's just a great big round process. And we use the circle because we want it to be really smooth. We don't want it to have any points. There's no high point and then drop off. We want it to be really smooth and rounded, and you to be breathing essentially the same rate from the very top all the way around and down to the very bottom in the transition. So you should be breathing through that same rate all the way through exhale and inhale. So that's circular breathing. Now, how can it benefit me at bedtime? Well, at bedtime, if my mind is racing or I'm having difficulty shutting my brain off, or I just feel like I'm a little flighty or my muscles are achy or sore, I can practice this breathing. It's going to increase, again, the oxygenation of my cells. It's going to allow for better hydration. It's going to improve the function of the mitochondria as well, which is the repair, the energy source of the cell in the body. And that initiates cellular repair in your body. Well, cellular repair happens in a significant amount when we sleep. So again, if we can't get to this phase of sleep, we're not supported. If we're not practicing this breathing, our mitochondria is not supported. And so then we're not really getting into this cellular repair phase while we sleep either. And we're constantly in this fight or flight, which if we're in fight or flight, are we in rest and digest? No, because they're antithesis. They should be in a balanced state always throughout our entire day. We should be in a balanced state, and we should even be able to go through incredible challenges by being in a balanced state still. So it's not that we should go through an incredible challenge and then achieve a fight or flight response. No, we should be able to go through an incredible challenge and remain in a balanced fight or flight, rest and digest response. Okay? And the same thing happens when we sleep. So if we can remain in a balanced state or get ourselves to a balanced state, it's called the autonomic nervous system. So autonomic nervous system balanced state is where we need to be, and circular breathing is going to help us get there. So again, how do I do it? If I start at the bottom all the way, I've exhaled all the way, I'm going to start with my inhale. And I want to start at the bottom of this circle and inhale nice and slowly. Imagine a nice round circle. I get to the top, and now I'm going to transition to my exhale. I'm going to keep my exhale going nice and slowly. And now I'm getting somewhat towards my inhale breath. And before my exhale breath stops, I initiate the inhale, and we begin again. And that's circular breathing.
Okay. Wim Hof says, breathe, mother effer. I was reading his book, and he's got very interesting breath techniques. So these are just a few, obviously.
Yeah.
Many
there's
breath
a lot
techniques.
of different breath techniques. Yes.
Many thousands? How many different breath techniques are there?
Oh, I would say, as many as there are people probably.
Yeah, exactly. This is a good start. What can change for people if they implement these?
Well, mental clarity. You'll have mental clarity. You'll have more energy. You'll have improved sleep if you implement these techniques. If you look to change your breathing patterns, right? You can increase your energy. You can change heart rate variability, right? You can change the heart rate by altering your breathing patterns. You jump in an ice cold bath, or if you jump in an ice cold pond, your heart rate's going to change real fast. you want to bring that as closely back to normal as you can. You do that through breathing. If you can control your breathing, try control your breathing when you jump into a pond. Wim Hof is a master, and of course, so much of it is breath work, right? But if you jump into an ice cold pond, what does your breath do? Initially, it's fight or flight, right? And so much of it is contracted and it's restricted, and we have to try to go, can I control my breathing? So that's one of the first things we do in that type of response is if I can control my breathing, if I can get my breathing back under control, then all my physiology will follow suit. If I can't, then I'm in trouble.
Well, and the metaphor is so powerful there. It's like if you get in that water as a practice, which it ain't easy. I'm not saying everyone can do it. They maybe want to try at some point. It's hard. But anyway, you step into that water, you start to hyperventilate, and somehow by about a minute in, you're able to whatever that breath is, but you start to breathe into it, and like you can become calm in the middle of this like trauma.
Yeah.
And then can you take that out of that ice bath into the world? I think it maybe your body is already learning it. In my head, it's mental, but maybe it's a combo of both.
Yeah. I would say yes. I think that's a great question. I think it was rhetorical. Can you take it out of that bath into the world? The reality is these things that we practice are meant to contribute to our experience in the world and to contribute to us being able to adapt to difficult situations. And again, I just jumped into an ice cold pond. Boy, I feel really uncomfortable right now. I'm angry, I'm pissed off, I'm nervous, I'm in a state of fight or flight. Can I control my breathing? Can I do some panting? Can I try to do a deep breath? Can I breathe slowly? Can I do pursed lips breathing? That's another technique as well. But there's so many different techniques that are so helpful. Another technique as well. We see a lot of musicians practice this type of breathing. But it's you'll breathe, and then you'll blow air, especially as you're starting to get close to losing it, into your cheeks. Right? So you blow air, and you're blowing into your instrument, and then you're exhausting the air in your cheeks as you're inhaling so you can keep or sustain a note longer.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
You just introduced me to the possibility of so many more breathing techniques.
That's a cool technique.
That's interesting.
You look at the thing, again, I started this off by saying we breathe, we change. First of all, I think the first time we realized that we changed our breathing patterns of our lungs was probably when we were born and we started crying, right? That was the first one. But beyond that, maybe from walking, we started hiking or we ran. And then we realized, wow, I have to alter my breathing in order to accomplish this task. And so now think about all the other tasks you can accomplish that are difficult or challenging in life. And how do you support those? With breathing.
So almost like lead with that, where it's like, I'm going into this situation or I'm doing this thing, I'm going to lead with a mindset around the breath.
You got it. Yeah.
So what if I'm nervous and I'm walking into a job interview, or I have to go, interact with somebody, or even make a phone call that I don't want to make? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, you feel those butterflies, you feel the anxiousness, you have maybe sweaty palms or whatever, and you feel the tension building up in your shoulders.
Like I just don't really want to.
You're going to pick one. You're going to pick one, whichever technique comes to your mind, and you're going to practice it. And if you happen to be in a waiting room waiting, and there are other people in there, probably the easiest one you're going to use is either the circular breathing or the slowing your breath down, right? And what I would say in that instance too is I like to, especially because your shoulders will often get up like this and tense, and so I like to open myself up. If I'm going to go in for a job interview, the first thing I want to do is present myself in picture form, so to speak, to these individuals like I'm ready to take on this job, or maybe take on the world, right? And so if I go in there and my shoulders are hunched forward and I'm wrapped up in like a fetal position, they're like, this guy needs some help, right? And we don't want to take this case on. But if I go in there, first of all, before I even go in there, right? I'm sitting in the chair, I sit up, I push back, I draw my shoulders back and down, And then I practice my breathing. Here I am in the posture of a winning athlete. I'm in the posture of somebody who's ready to take on a task. I'm in the posture of someone who says, no, I may not know exactly how to do that, but I know I can get it done, right? And so treat yourself that way. See yourself that way and go through the practice. Before you even walk through that door, give yourself the very best first impression, breathing yourself into it, posture your way through, right? So that first impression is golden.
Breath work on the Be Well Now podcast. Any final thoughts, Dr. D?
No, I don't. I think that was good. I think
really
we covered
enjoyed
pretty
that.
good.
I can't wait till we do more meditation podcasts. For the 5 listeners out there, hey, by the way, we have 1,000+ followers on Instagram.
Woo-hoo.
So your shorts are
Thank you, 1,000.
are a hit. The YouTube, the podcast, we're still working on that. So
Yeah.
if you are listening and you've given us all your time, so thank you.
And if anybody out there knows how to get us more popular on YouTube or whatever, then just go ahead.
I think
Help
it's just
us out
to
there.
get you out
Like
there.
us,
We're trying, like
subscribe.
the little nuggets you have are brilliant, and the long form thing is difficult. I've never done anything like this before, but I'm enjoying it. I actually had a good friend who's going through a really hard time. He keeps talking about how he wants something that he was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Where I was in this place 2 years ago, and I was doing all these things, and I played him this little clip, this little short that we have on YouTube and Instagram, where it's like, I tell my patients, envision a place you want to be, and it's not when you were 20. We're not going
it's
back.
Not last year.
He's like, where we're going, it's better than that. You can elaborate, but
yes.
he wanted to see it twice because he got off Instagram, so he doesn't want to have social media. Like, he's trying to do all these things, and he's like, let me see that one more time, bro. And he watched it twice. He's like, that's what I needed to hear. So if it's not
That's
delivered
awesome.
through the podcast and you're not getting it that way, but you're getting it through these shorts, I feel good about it.
Yeah,
Your words, but I'm like helping to help
absolutely.
get out there, so I feel good about it.
Well, it's nice to know that people are benefiting from it,
Yeah.
right? And that's what it's all about. It's if we can help uplift and help orient people to a better future, to the future that really is in store for them if they, put their shoulders back and breathe well. Amen to that.
Let's be well now.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-bow.